Tonight, a heterosexual movie by Greg Araki. It's part of his Teenage Apocalypse Trilogy, sandwiched between 1993's film Totally Fucked Up, that's the title, and 97's Nowhere, in what's essentially a DP of Gen X angst and adolescent aimlessness. When I first rented it back in 95 or 96, it felt fucked up and very of the moment. And now I watch it and I read it as not only a moment in time, like a time capsule, um, but also like the illegitimate latchkey child of John Waters and Fox TV. It's a significant part of new queer cinema, just like all of Araki's work, but it's also an often forgotten title among the decade's string of teen and young adult coming of age films. And it's often forgotten, I think, because it's gay and because it's intentionally trash. Like the generation it represents, it's basically left outside, like we were in the street, unsupervised, drinking from water fountains, from water hoses, roaming. The film I'm discussing, that we're going to discuss, that I'm talking about, is The Doom Generation. Roger Ebert supposedly gave it 0 stars because he objected to its irony and its cynicism. Irony and cynicism. Welcome to the 90s, asshole. RickRamos. What say you?
Got a real problem with Roger Ebert. I get it.
Who does?
You.
I have a well, first of all, Roger Ebert is doing something that I'm not interested in doing.
Yeah.
Roger Ebert is like, his job and Siskel's job was to say, this is what I saw. I think it's either good or not good based on these things, and you should watch it or you shouldn't watch it or something along those lines, because their job is to recommend movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'll recommend a movie to a friend, maybe. I mean, on some level, we'll recommend movies to people on the show, but I'm not here to recommend movies. I'm here to talk about movies and what they mean, and I think kind of like what they get at. I'm not here to say this is. Oh, I'm not here exclusively to say this is a good movie, this is a bad movie, and why. I think that's part of it, but that's not all of it.
As I've gotten older, I've realized that it is much to piggyback off of what you're saying. As I've gotten older, I've realized that it's pointless to recommend movies to people. In the same way that it's pointless to recommend a cut of meat or a restaurant or anything that takes personal taste into account. There are people out there that love the human centipede. Just by description, I can tell that it's not something that I would enjoy. I like the ridiculousness of it, as it is a topic of popular culture and the jokes that it plays in a number of varying settings, as it's made fun of in various TV shows or comedy bits or whatever you want to call it. But I am of the opinion that recommending something to someone is pointless, because I don't know, nor do I care what those people like. I can only comment on my feelings concerning a work of art. Greg Araki is a director. Greg Araki made a film called The Doom Generation in the mid-90s, and I don't care about the irony or the cynicism of the film. Those are both valid jumping off points in which to make an artistic statement. The problem that I have with the film is that it's not interesting. It's obvious. It's bad acting. pointless direction in the sense that there's no real. I don't know what he's trying to say with this film. The only thing that I can say that I do enjoy about this film is that it looks good. I like the stock of film. I like the way it's shot. I like the way it makes LA look like a strange kind of. He picked some very out of the way LA, and I guess going into the Temecula or the fucking Lake Elsinore or whatever the fucking desert areas of LA. So I kind of like that. But as a film, with the exception of the final scene, I felt the entire film was forced, boring, and pointless. But I'm a 51-year-old man watching a movie that was designed for a teenage audience 30 years ago.
30 years ago, yeah. That's the key.
That is, and I think that's important. However, I believe, knowing my sensibilities, I would not have enjoyed this film then. But all of the problems that I have with the film are glaringly obvious as I'm watching it right now. And to be fair to Araki, I have this collection. I have the Teenage Trilogy, the Teenage Apocalypse Trilogy that Criterion put out a few years back, and it's totally fucked up. The Doom Generation and Nowhere. And I didn't just watch the Doom Generation in preparation for this episode. I had intended to watch all three films, but I did start with Totally Fucked Up. And although that's not a film that I entirely enjoyed, I had to say that it was very interesting, and it's something that makes me forgive whatever the fuck this movie is and makes me want to watch Nowhere, number one, because I think there's an interesting filmmaker here when he's dealing with better material, and Totally Fucked Up is a better film in that sense for me. Nowhere has a cast that I'm interested. Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to be entirely successful, but I am willing to give him that last. Not that it matters, but I am willing to give it that last chance of maybe this is worth it. And the fact that his films are less than an hour and a half, it's not that much of a time commitment. So I will be watching Nowhere, but I think Totally Fucked Up made it possible for me to go into the Doom Generation with the attitude that this might be interesting at the very least and fun. And it was neither of those things. And with the exception of that final scene, I can't recommend any aspect of this film. But that's me. And I'm interested in you going back in time to discuss the 15, 16, 17-year-old you watching this movie with your friends and what it might have meant.
Yeah, I mean, it was a film that we rented, and it wasn't in high rotation. I think that's key somehow, and I don't know if I've used that key to unlock it yet. I think at some point we're gonna watch Dazed and Confused.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna watch some other movies. And a lot of them are not good. A lot of the movies that we're going to watch that are these teen movies are not. And I don't. Let me take that back. They're not great movies. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just going to say they're not these great classics. And this film is not. I don't think this film is timeless. It's not that, and I don't know that it was even meant to be that. Because my reading of the film now is very different, obviously, than then, but even since like the times that I've seen it in between. It was one we rented, and we saw it. Like it was one of the ones that we saw like as a group type of thing. And I might have seen it like either with another friend or also by myself, like subsequently. But it was one that I more looped with, like Lost Highway, because it had a look, and which you brought up.
Yeah.
There was something about the look that I was already like, oh, I like the look of this shit. So it's something that I like. I would even potentially like. I never did that, but I could see myself putting it on with music, putting it on mute with music in the background while I'm fucking like organizing or something like that. Just to have it on.
Yeah.
It had a darker thing at the time. I remember it just felt like those times. It felt contemporary. It felt it captured that sense of the fuck you of being 15, 16 years old, and in the 90s, and it felt like I knew it somehow, even though in terms of the subject matter of like the gay factor of it, I didn't hang out with like, I don't think that we knew of, like we didn't really have like gay friends. There were gay teenagers, but they weren't like really part of our circle. If they were, like we don't know who they were. You know what I mean? But I think my view of the world was like there's like alternative people and there's fucking like uh generic people, basically. That's kind of how I looked at everyone from in from the perspective of a 15-year-old. And on the extreme end of alternative people, it was like you go off the deep end and you fucking either you fucking, I think I kind of touched on this in kids. It's like either you're a fucking like outlaw criminal gangster and because you're that outside the norm, or else you're a fucking like you become the fucking neo Nazis of the end of this film because you're so in the norm that like you're gonna do, it's like that. Fuck you! I won't do it. What how does that Rage Against the Machine
Fuck you! I
says?
won't do what you told me.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and and that's kind of how I viewed it. And so even there was obviously homophobia among teens in like high school. With me, it was like it seemed like it was part of the rock thing because I was like learning about rock music. So it was like Lou Reed, David Bowie, um, even Kurt Cobain fucking wearing dresses. It was part of an alternative thing. I think that like kept us open minded and kept us not not rigid in a sense of and not rigid and exclusionary. Um, so it became like, oh yeah, that fucking gay movie with the chick with the bangs would be, if you don't remember the title, it's like, oh, the Doom Generation, blah blah blah. What movie is that? Oh, it's just like this fucking gay movie with some chick with because we didn't know who Rose McGowan was. I don't think I did. I think it was just from here. That's when I find out. You know what I mean? And it's just part of the thing. It's some fucked up gay movie. It has like some dark shit, fucking like some bloody shit. It's kind of stupid, whatever. And then like, all right, whatever, man. Like that's the attitude. Like, is it cool? It's got some cool shit, but it's also stupid. And like at the time, it was probably like, oh, her tits come out, fucking like this chick gets fucked and like they're just getting high, fucking like same as us, you know, and like that. So it's interesting to try to put myself back there. Now I look at it and I'm like, some of these movies, I'm going like, how like why did I like this movie? Aside from the obvious like the look, but I'm like, now I look at it and I understand it more as an adult because I'm like, I see this as a fucking '90s John Waters version of trash. I think so much built into it is the fact that it's has that campy gayness that if you don't keep that, like if you try to not read it as a gay film, like like that type of like when I say gay film, I mean John Waters camp, Rocky Horror Picture Show, fucking that kind of shit. Then it's kind of like, why do I take this film seriously? Um, but if I look at it as that kind of movie, I'm like, yeah, it's fucking. That's what it is. It's fucking trash. Um, and it revels in its own fucking trash. It's it's of that. And when you look at other teen films of the era, I think that most of them are fucking white centric, um, straight films, unless they're deliberately black voiced, which are the coming of age in a fucked up society type of fucking Boys in the Hood, Bronx Tale. I mean, Bronx Tale is um, not black, but I mean, it has the that racist and the issue of race and the jungle fever shit, which are that I'll add that to the New York layer of it. Um, Juice, fucking Menace, all those movies are are very specifically Gen X kid in the hood shit. And are you gonna go this way or are you gonna go that way? You've got your fucking MTV analog media culture, pre-digital shit, which is like, okay, Clerks, Empire Records, pump up the volume. Like, those are the nostalgia things of like for the video stores and the radio. Nostalgia of nostalgia, Dazed and Confused. You've got your drug shit, Kids, Friday is a version of that mixed in the hood. Um, the existential of young adult Gen Xer, which is fucking Reality Bites. The aimlessness of Slackers, Clueless, Suburbia. Most of these are very white centric films. Um, Singles, which is supposed to be the Seattle grunge thing or whatever.
Yeah.
This film is outside of all of those because it's very lowbrow. It's in very bad taste on purpose. The acting is with quotes. It's I don't know if it's I don't think it's bad acting. I think
Oh,
it's
I do.
no. I studied acting.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad acting. I think it's directed that way.
Hmm. And that's bad direction too. Then
No. That's not bad direction. I think it's meant to be that way. I think it's meant to be
bad.
Trash.
Yeah.
I think it's trash with a capital T. Do I think do I want to watch that all day long? No. Um, I think it could be. I think it could have been cooler, according to what I think is cool. Had there been way less dialogue and had the humor, whatever kind of humor that they're trying to use, was like toned way the fuck down. But I think Araki wanted everything that's in there. I think he wanted it to be that way.
I can see your point with something like that, and I agree to as far as an artistic choice that's being made. But does it mean that it's successful? Just because a director wanted it to be a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that it works. And I think this film is formless in that sense because it just I think the dialogue is bad. I think the acting. I don't know if the acting is bad or if it's directed to be bad. Duvall is particularly bad in this film. I think the ineffective boyfriend who may or may not be gay in this film, and part of the problem though is that they're given lines that are just badly written. But as I was thinking about this film more today, trying to come up with an angle that I was going to take with it. I was surprised at how much I didn't care for Rose McGowan's performance in this film. But what struck me was, at first I told myself, well, it's bad writing and she's given bad lines to deliver. But then I thought of Tura Santana, and I thought she was given bad lines, and look at the beauty that she was able to pull out of it. And
her lines were good.
I think she added to it. I don't think that Russ Myers wrote a necessarily good script. I think it was more the commitment of Tura Santana in the shit that she was saying, the ridiculousness of some of it, and her total commitment to what she was saying, and how she made that character believable in a way that Rose McGowan can't do it in this film. Rose McGowan's pretty to look at, but it doesn't sell as a. I don't know what she's supposed to be in this film. Is she supposed to be a tough bitch? She's supposed to be a crazy? It's alluded to that she's multiple identities, and she's not exactly who she says she is. But Araki doesn't really do anything with that. He doesn't. He introduces plot ideas without giving them any kind of real shape or form or any kind of payoff, which can work with a better director, but simply doesn't work in this film. In part because, and I can only speak for myself in this regard, but I'm just not interested in the film. And when you start checking the time to see how much longer the film is going to be, that's never a good sign. And I found myself doing that quite a number of times with this film, in a way that I didn't do with his previous film. The reason I bring up Totally Fucked Up is because it Totally Fucked Up gave me at least the hope that I was going to see something that was a formidable voice. And this film really disappointed in that regard, because but films are not always going to be either your taste, your like, or something that resonate with you. All I can say is, I may be in the wrong, because this is a cult classic and it speaks to a generation of people who really love the film. But I don't bring the baggage to that viewing that they do. So I don't know what it is that resonates with people. But like we said at the beginning of this episode, I'm not here to convince anybody that it's a bad film. I'm not here to convince anybody that it shouldn't be seen. You watch it based on whatever the fuck you imagine it's going to be. You're either going to agree with me, or you're going to agree with you, or they're going to agree with somebody else who holds this up as some kind of great cinematic achievement. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I know that I won't be returning to it, but I'm glad that I finally saw something that I've heard so much about, and that has a cult mythological reputation. So I don't know.
It's like looking at an old fucking magazine from whatever time period, and just like, it's a time capsule.
Mm-hmm.
It's I personally just lump it in with several 90s movies that, like, and some of them, like, I watch Nemesis. I watch at least the opening part of that film, or the first half. I watch that probably like 3 times a year. Um, there's something about it, and a lot of it has to do with the look. That for whatever reason, like I like the look of it, and I think that movie, it's a B movie, and
Mhm.
and I'm like, yeah, this movie's fucking like bad, um, but I like it, and especially the first half, because I don't think I've seen the full film in since the 90s. Um, then there are films again like something like Hardware, um, which is like more on the rare side, or something like Lost Highway, David Lynch, that they also have this kind of like looks that I like, and I think they're good. Um, this, yeah, I'm like, this is not. This is, I don't know what this is, other than a piece of the '90s. It's like a scrapbook, and there's some nostalgia to it, but different than when I told the story of going to see The Crow, and we had to fucking, my mom just dropped us off, um, and just like, stay out of trouble and don't fucking embarrass me, and like, call me when you're ready.
Yeah.
And off she drives away, and we can't get into the movie because we're too young. So it's like, hey, can we go in with you? We won't sit with you. We won't talk to you. Um, to this like older teenage dude or whatever the fuck he was, and he's like, yeah, and and then like they're with me, and there we go, then he probably ended up fucking hanging out with some Rose McGowan lookalike and just making out with her, like that has its own level of nostalgia for that. This is just kind of like one of those that when I think back on it, that's why when we did our films of the that defined their decades, I bumped fucking I bumped Natural Born Killers to number 2 and put this in number 1 because it not only did it have like the references and the Easter eggs, to me it just felt like the 90s. It felt like it back then, and then when I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that's what it feels like to me. Obviously, this is personal, and this is, I grew up where I grew up and how I grew up or whatever, and yeah, you're 5 years or however the fuck older you are than me,
Mm-hmm.
so you're having a different look at it. But I remember talking about the way I described it was that Natural Born Killers to me, when I looked back at it then, which was in 2022 when we did that episode, I described Natural Born Killers to me as the state of the times, and the Doom generation as the state of being of the generation of those times, particularly young Gen X. Um, and the film's got Parker Posey, it's got fucking Heidi Fleiss. Like she's an Easter egg in that fucking movie.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Heidi Fleiss is, the Hollywood Madam, one of the tabloid stories of the '90s, one of many. Um, it's got Perry Farrell from fucking Pornos for Pyros.
Jane's Addiction,
Just
wasn't he?
Jane's Addiction. Yeah, exactly. Very good.
It's got Dustin Nguyen, who was 21 Jump
21 Jump.
Street, Margaret
Yeah.
Cho. It has
Yep.
a number of people in it, and but I mean, it's like, are you invested? as far as more than just, hey, look at that and let me catch that like an Easter egg. Are you invested in the story that's being told, or the characters as they're developed? I don't. Uh, Jonathan Shea kind of gives an interesting performance. Um, with like the bigger, he's got the biggest kind of playground in this movie. He's got the most room to really work. Um, but the two leads, Duvall and Rose McGowan, um, I've seen their story told before and better. Um, at one point, I started thinking about Badlands, and I was like, "Oh my God, Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen are so much better in these roles, in a better film."
Yeah, I
But
mean
then you know what I mean?
I don't think I think you're working too hard. I
Uh,
no, I get it.
well, it's
I get
I'm
it.
working too hard because I'm trying to get out of a movie that doesn't that doesn't offer enough. See, I don't come
You're
to it with
looking too
any
much
kind
for it.
of memory of it being important to me in any way. I'm a totally
You're totally fucked up.
yeah,
Um,
with this one,
you're a
yeah.
dweeb. Um, to take lines from this fucking horrible script. No, it's you're looking at pink flamingos and you're going like, um, I want to see fucking character development. Like you're looking in all the wrong places. Like this is an AM PM fucking
Hmm.
hamburger.
Yeah, but you know
Um,
what? It's interesting that you bring up um, fucking Pink Flamingos, because I saw that in a theater when I was the age that you would have seen this, and I hated it. I just it would take years before I would I would grow in my appreciation for John Waters, and that I would get, oh, it's ridiculous for ridiculous sake. I think Araki is trying to do that with this film, and doesn't have the skill as a storyteller or the comedy chops to sell what he believes is funny in this film. I know there's aspects of this film that are supposed to be funny. I didn't laugh. I didn't find it funny at all. I just was like, and not in the sense of, oh, I'm offended and I'm insulted by this. I was indifferent because none of it really, it just didn't resonate. It didn't I didn't look at it and think, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a good chuckle with that, and I see the point. Now it was just kind of pointless, and as far I'll tell you one thing, it made me want to go back and watch Badlands again, but it made me want to finally sit down and watch California.
oh, with a K.
Yeah, the K.
With David Duchovny and Brad Pitt. Yeah, I remember that's one that what was that, like maybe 96, 97, something like
Around
that?
that time, yeah, and you have Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
who at that point was doing everything that he could to get away from his pretty boy um, reputation, but you also had Juliette Lewis, who had come off of, I think she
Oh
had
yeah.
come off of Natural Born Killers at that point, playing a character that was, I've never seen it, so I don't know. Is she mentally retarded in the film, or she just kind of dim-witted, or I don't.
I think she's kind of that Juliette Lewis
Yeah.
fucking bubbly.
Hmm.
It's been years since I've seen that movie, but yeah, that was one that also got
Yeah.
some rentals.
Well, this film makes me want to see that film because I think that film was probably better. I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna like. I think you're gonna like that one more.
Hmm.
I mean, she's in her fucking she's in her Strange Days, Dusk Till Dawn era when she
Yeah.
makes all those
Yeah.
movies, which is like that's the string that she made from Cape Fear through
Hmm.
um, California, Natural Born Killers, Dusk Till Dawn, Strange Days, all that shit. Like that's her run.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think you're gonna like that kind of story more. I think it's gonna appeal to you more. It's also because I think the characters are grown up, um, and there there's they're not as like there's not as much of that like affectation of Valley Girl and like this kind of like Bart Simpson kind of like language. Um, that's what I think of when I hear the dialogue in this film. It's kind of that's what to me it reminds me less is it a mixture of John Waters and MTV? I think it's more to me more of a mixture of John Waters and Fox TV, which was out here was Channel 11, and it was like Married with Children and Living Color, The Simpsons, all that bullshit that came out at that time. That was it had like a trashy feel to it. And I remember parents were just kind of like, the shows on this station are fucked up, and they would tell people like they would not want their kids to watch those types of shows.
Yeah.
And you know, at least initially, and then eventually they fucking gave up because they were tired. But like, yeah, this is not a great film. This is not something that you're gonna go into for. It's one thing to be like, well, at least I want to be entertained, and if it's not entertaining, if I think it's boring, then fuck it. Why should I watch it? Like, of course, but for the idea of like Badlands, Badlands is a different whole fucking thing. Badlands is someone who's I think Malik is pursuing like so-called high art. I think Araki is pursuing trash on purpose. I think he revels in I think it. I don't know. I can't get into his mindset, and I don't know. And I didn't listen to interviews or watch or read or anything like that. It just to me it's just mostly like an exercise in revisiting and trying to really kind of not even reconcile, but kind of like on the one hand hold up like my look at it nowadays versus what I'm gonna pretend that I remember from looking at it back then, or what I'm gonna invent. And they're definitely not the same. But I don't remember thinking like, "Fuck, I love this movie back then."
Yeah.
But it's a movie that it has always been with me. That it was just like, oh fuck, it's like one of those '90s movies, and then the further away from it I get, I tend to think of it as like more and more like the '90s movie. And I can list off, okay, Doc Martens, the flannel shirt tied around the waist, some of the music that was in the film. All of those things are '90s, but it's all very fuzzy. Like, what's making me think? No matter how many lists of items or things that I can say why this would be to me considered like the '90s film, I think that's to a certain degree it's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I can see that.
My list from that to 2022 episode, Scream was 10, Boys in the Hood, Reality Bites, Pulp Fiction, the Rodney King beating because it was recorded, Clerks, Kurt and Courtney, Kids, Natural Born Killers, The Doom Generation. That episode and those reasons, we each picked what we picked. Yours were JFK, Reality Bites, American Beauty, Toy Story, Terminator 2, Falling Down, Forrest Gump, Clerks, Pulp Fiction, and Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, I think Natural Born Killers was my number one film. Yeah.
And Natural Born Killers was my number one. And previously when we had done Natural Born Killers, I had said it was my number one. but for that episode, I changed it. And when we talked about separately, we talked about Strange Days, Dark City,
Mm-hmm.
Naked, Seven, Natural Born Killers. I think those are, if not the greatest, or they're among. I think like, and I'm not saying the best made films, but I think that's a difference too. Um, I think Dark City and Naked. I think those are some of the best films of that decade. Um,
I would agree with that.
the
Yeah.
Doom Generation is not in that list. The Doom Generation is more like Linkletter's Slacker. I don't know if you've ever seen that, and that
Mm-hmm.
very much also captures that kind of generation. The title says it all. You're watching these motherfuckers just kind of like aimlessly fucking like
Mm-hmm.
hang out,
Yeah, moving through life.
which
Yeah.
was also a fucking thing. Um, the premise of this film is like it's this bi fucking curious, I guess, love triangle of teens going from fast food joint to fucking convenience store to motel, and um, Rose McGowan ends up sleeping with like both of them, and they're just experiencing how fucking things suck with this sense of like shit sucks.
You know what? That might have been a better film if that had just focused on the relationship of all three. But then but Araki creates this scenario, and it's a big scenario of a quick stop, whatever you want to call it, 7-Eleven murder that hangs over the rest of the film. So it's kind of there, but they don't really do anything with it. There's a moment of a news report that there's something out there, and then there's this hint of an earring that was lost in the moment. So you're wondering, and you can't help but think to yourself, well, when is that going to come back into play? You've introduced something that traditionally um, plays out in a movie scenario, in a narrative, and he does nothing with it. But what you're describing, this threesome relationship, this weird kind of love triangle, bisexual, um, all of that would have made a much better film if the film had just concentrated on this struggle between Rose McGowan's character, who is sexually free, the James Duval character, who is, I don't know if you want to call confused or bisexual or curious or unsure of who he really is, and this tough guy character that seems to be drawing the sexuality out of them. That would have been a much more interesting film. So I think the problem with the film is it adds a story element and plot line that takes away from the concentration of what you're seeing, because it's
The mess.
almost
That's why.
it's yeah, it is a mess, but it's like, oh, okay, we got the sex, let's throw the violence in as another way of selling. But if you're going to have sex and you're going to have violence, they both have to serve a greater purpose. The sex is there, and it's interesting, and you could have done something with that. The violence seems opportunistic. So I don't see. I think that's the problem with the film, is that it's carrying too much weight and doesn't do anything with something that is. There's a point where you start asking yourself, well, wait a minute, what happened to that? Are they going to do anything with that? Are they going to come back to that? Um, and you're realizing, no, they're not. Um, and then you have
Yeah,
this scene at the end. Well,
that ends.
yeah. So it's like, I don't. I just think it's a bad narrative structure. Well, not it's bad narrative choices.
Yeah, the structure is
Yeah.
If you're looking at it from a perspective of form, yeah, you want everything to add up to whatever happens at the end. Or else, if you're gonna not do that, like Slacker doesn't have that. All that it does is just completely meander, and it goes from one
Yeah.
like group into the next, and it's built in a kind of like vignette kind of way, but it flows. And in that sense, because it's an art film, it doesn't have a fucking arc, Slacker, and so it can be seen as boring because it doesn't have an arc. Because if you want a film to not be boring, you have to build, you have to have that form. Um, I don't know if this is opportunistic in the sense of like, oh, we need to put this into so we can sell. I feel like it was just like we're gonna fuck around and make this movie and fucking and I felt like it Araki and whoever the fuck else was involved in the script and everything else, it was just probably like I get the sense that it was probably just like a fun project that was touching on these issues and touching on these themes that he wanted to like throw in. Um, and it seems very much like not something that was like rigorously fucking like worked on. It was just it was like we're gonna fucking make music in the garage and we're just gonna make noise and fucking see what happens and throw shit out there. And so yeah, from the perspective of the form of the film, yeah, I mean it's like a really messy fucking car that like it's a cool car, but it has like a lot of like fast food wrappers fucking thrown around and it's dirty and it's fucking messy. And do you want to fuck in that car? Maybe, but I mean it's also kind of gross. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I see this film. And I do find it interesting that like it's it's not something that gets a lot of like you don't really hear about this movie. Whereas some of the other movies that I mentioned, you do hear about. I mean, obviously the other ones are more mainstream and more they're going to preach to you. This one doesn't preach at all. Um, the biggest scene is the end scene where, so kind of like if you think of like a video game, a shot of Mortal Kombat um, in somewhere in the movie. Um, it's kind of like every every time they go somewhere, someone mistakes Rose McGowan or some other chick, and then usually that leads to some kind of violent confrontation where they're like stalking her and they have a run in with her and then they're like, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna kill her. Um, now that you talk about form, maybe what he was trying to do, and I'm not like trying to like be his advocate or whatever the fuck, I don't care. But now that I think about it, maybe he's trying to use these red herrings to make the ending like bigger because the first time it's this dude who thinks that she broke his heart, that it's the one who broke his heart or whatever, and he's like, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna kill her. So then they have a violent conversation, and is it like, oh shit, like he's still gonna come back for her? Then it's Parker Posey, and she says, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna kill her. So then he's like, that's who's gonna come and get her. So it ultimately, it's these um, white jock fucking racist dudes who rape her and they lay out an American flag. They play the fucking Star Spangled Banner. They have the main guy has a swastika and red paint on his fucking chest and takes some fucking like some hedge clippers or whatever and castrates the James Duval character, who is the like the weak, sensitive one or whatever of the three. She kills them. In the end, it's just this guy X, aptly named, Gen X, fucking kind of pseudo criminal who's like the sexuality guy, the raw magnetism guy. They're just driving in the car. I maybe that's what Araki was trying to do in terms of building, but what I was getting at is in that scene, throughout the film, you see these people literally be misunderstood and mistaken for someone else. And they're very teens who are just fucking doing stupid shit. Every once in a while, with as happens with weed, like sometimes you get a little bit like pseudo philosophical, and you can be like, "Hey, have you ever like this is trippy? Have you ever like thought about blah blah blah?" To which the other person's usually like, "No." That's the end of that.
Yeah.
And and other than that, these people are just all they talk about is just stupid shit of the moment, like a fucking teenager. Which also like a fucking how many adults do we encounter on a fucking like daily basis who never grew out of those phases? And they keep finding themselves in these consumerist, violent societies. And in that sense, it's not preachy like Boys in the Hood, but I think there is somewhere in there, in a way that's not very like purposefully articulated, is a condemnation of American society, definitely. Especially if you're coming from like a gay Asian dude like Araki, like you're gonna be on the receiving end of fucked up shit. In our racist fucking society. And so in the end, that's the most like statement like is you get, oh shit, they're the victims of a fucking hate crime. They're the victims of fucking sexual abuse. They're the victims of violence, of murder. But at the end of the day, shit kind of returns to the convenience store, gas station, AM, PM, liquor store, fast food drive-through fucking reality, and it's just kind of like, you want a Dorito? And instead of riding off into the sunset, you just ride off into more bullshit, more LA fucking suburban sprawl if you're on that side of LA. Otherwise, you're in the fucking urban shit. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's not. I think it's marginalized for the reasons that I think it should have a voice, is because it's different. It's not fucking Clueless. It's not fucking the mall rats or whatever. It's not Clerks. Which I mean, we can relate to all these different aspects, but like this one is very much the fucking forgotten of the forgotten ones. Like this is the latchkey of all the fucking latchkey kids.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so I'm glad it exists. I'll put it to you that way, because it does stand apart from, I think, the more mainstream, very much whitewashed fucking versions of these stories. And it's not, it doesn't have the budget or the fucking cinematic genius of fucking Malik to turn it into this Bonnie and Clyde, like boomer Bonnie and Clyde shit that fucking that he does with Badlands, and it's not the budget or frenetic fucking potentially cocaine fueled genius of Oliver Stone for Natural Born Killers. It's at best a B side of Natural Born Killers. Maybe it's the B side of California, which is a B side of Natural Born Killers.
Yeah,
it is a trash fucking movie. And I guess now at the end of talking about this, I'm just kind of like, you know what? Like the movie's done. You can't root for the movie. You can root that so it would do well or whatever. I don't care about that. But there's something about it, I guess, when I think of it as like fucking marginalized or whatever. But it's marginalized because that's how it was made.
yeah.
I'm glad it's marginalized because it stands apart. But I also root for it because it's marginalized and it's like an underdog character. And it's different. And it's part of a cinema that the greater picture of it, I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar, like I've seen My Own Private Idaho. I saw that shit years ago, and I've seen it only once. And I
remember not caring for it. Yeah.
Gus Van Sant and those guys they're all thrown into that kind of that it's not even a movement, but that kind of vibe of new queer cinema, which I'm very interested in, like learning about, and at the very least, like I know Todd Haynes has like some interesting music in like one of his earlier films. So you know what I mean, like.
But I mean, have you seen the other films in this Apocalypse trilogy, or?
I saw the one with I saw Nowhere, the one with the it's got like Christina Applegate and it's got does it have Shannon Doherty or
No, it has Christina Applegate, Heather Graham. I don't know who else, but it doesn't have. I don't think it has Shannon Doherty.
I think it does.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing her in the preview. You should see Totally Fucked Up. Totally Fucked Up is definitely not something that I would have found myself seeking out, but I wanted to give context to this film and this filmmaker in order to move forward with it. And that's just about a bunch of gay kids in LA and Hollywood in the early 90s. And it's aimless, but it's about hookup culture and trying to figure out, just your life. And I at least thought that was a promising. I thought it was, number one, I thought it was a good movie, but I thought it was also a promising entry into what this director was capable of. Doom Generation ultimately disappoints, and everything that you say, I can see everything that you're talking about in relation to this film, and I can see why you say it. But at the end of the day, for me, is a film even successful at doing what it sets out to do? And I'm not sure that it does, but I am not of this culture. I am not of this time. And I don't relate to the material as such, so I'm not the person to necessarily speak about the cultural significance of the film. It's a foreign idea to me. It's a cinema that I don't particularly care about. So with Totally Fucked Up, I can at least say, yeah, that's an interesting concept. That's an interesting idea, and he does some really good things with it. I can't say that with this film, except for the look. I love the way. I guess it's 16 millimeter blown up to 35, and it has this old grainy quality to it that I think if the film has anything going for it, it's that.
That's what I first kind of like.
Yeah.
That's what grabbed my eye when I saw it. I must have grabbed someone else's eye too because they stole it from a video store.
Well, that's. I think ultimately that's the more interesting part. Why is this a film that resonates with people? And I don't think it's just because you get to see Rose McGowan's tits.
Of course.
You know what I mean? No, I'm just putting that out there, like that to the dismissive, that would be the selling point. But I think there's something here that
Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I'm sure there's something here that it just doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't ignite anything in me. But that's not to say it doesn't for other people, because obviously it does. And Araki is an important cultural figure in the art. And
subcultural, at least.
Yeah. I don't take that away from him. I don't deny. I'd be an asshole to deny that it exists. It's just not something that hits with me.
And part of that tension too is when it hit me as soon as I said subcultural, because it's like, on the one hand you want people to, and this is also very 90s. This is very Kurt Cobain. This is very fucking like not selling out, keeping it real. All that bullshit is like, on the one hand you want people to be successful at what they do. On the other hand is this idea of like, well, if it's more underground or more niche or more, if it's going to be just trash, like, he's going to have fewer people fucking with him in the way he wants to do it. But then fewer people are going to see it. And then you get the gatekeeper aspect where it's kind of like, well, it's better because more people who do see it, maybe they're going to like be more like appreciative of it versus people who want to see some mainstream shit. Like, so it's this constant back and forth thing. And that goes beyond, that was part of the decade, but it goes beyond that. We talked about it in the context of the films that define their decades, which this particular film is from the 90s. We did that in episode 402 and 403. If anyone's interested in going back and exploring, so I'm doing a fucking promo of our own shit from the archives. If people are interested in returning to that, for those purposes, we did some 90s movies. We did episode 111, 113, 114, and 115. We talked about Natural Killers, Southern, Strange Days, Naked, Dark City. Those go back to the year 2016 when we talked about those. So those are episodes 111, 113, 114, 115. If you're interested in kind of going back and seeing what we had to say at that time about those perspectives, we're going to be continuing to look at these kind of like teen coming of age type of films as you would say, a palate cleanser, but also, you know, as a shifting of gears for the sake of kind of nostalgia, and also like to kind of reconnect with some of this old shit, which is very much about what we do. This episode goes to Alan Lamberg, buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. It's buymeacoffee.com/watch RickRamos. Once again, Alan Lambert. Stay trashy. Goodbye.